Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I've been looking so much forward to this panel talk, and we really have to hurry because we've got so much exciting stuff to talk about. So we've already heard about Danica's work and Alfredo's work, so I'll briefly introduce Ananth and Nicholas, of course. So Ananth Narayanan, I hope I pronounced it relatively well, is the CEO of the Indian fashion and lifestyle online sales platform Myntra, which covers 70% of the Indian market share. Myntra has, through their in-house innovation team, Rapid it's called, developed AI for designing and gone to market with some of these AI-generated products. So if you'd just give us a really quick introduction of some of your work, please.
Sure. So firstly, by the way, thank you for having me again. Second time now, so and the editions get more exciting.
Yes.
So as you said, Myntra is a large online fashion platform. So we have almost 17 million monthly active users, so you get lots and lots of data. So one of the things we thought about is why not use a lot of that data to actually create a brand with real customer insights without a designer. So we actually have a machine learning based program. It's called Rapid, which actually uses all of the data that we have and uses a framework called the GAN framework to actually create designs. And then India is a manufacturing hub, so we actually get it done in 45 days, have it online, and sell. So last year, when I came and spoke here, we had just started the brand. So through the year, the brand did almost $20 million of sales and actually has the highest sell-through rates. And it is the most profitable brand that we actually have. And we've also started actually externalizing that and using it for other brands other than Myntra to use the same network, the same software, in order to actually come up with designs that actually work.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's a little
wonderful.
bit what we do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I'll quickly introduce Nicholas Kirkwood. I'm sure most of you probably already know about Nicholas, maybe not as a person, but as a brand, or maybe both, I don't know. I'll just give you a quick run through. So Nicholas Kirkwood is an acclaimed British luxury accessories and shoe brand, founded in 2005. The brand announced its partnership with LVMH in 2013, and we'll just be showing one of your videos, which is essentially the Nicholas Kirkwood Bayer Bespoke program, which is super exciting. So we'll just see this really quickly before we go on to the panel talk. Lovely. It's good with a lot of colors, so that's very, very good. So with the launch of this Bayer Bespoke program with Farfetch, you've already involved the consumer in part of the creative process. How far would you go with co-creation now, thinking about a way to Mars and sort of like this whole space?
Well, with the Bayer's Bespoke program, essentially, it's taking one of my sort of classic shoes. It's a very sort of easy, kind of everyday type of shoe that within the collection itself we offer, in a few varieties, and we essentially worked with Farfetch to kind of create a sort of Nike ID version, essentially, of it, which allows the customer to sort of choose every sort of detail from the stitching to the edge color, to what type of leather, what kind of combination of leather, what type of hardware colors, and for them to really add add their sort of personality with it within that shoe. They can also even add their initials to it. So, you know, does that then become like a free-for-all? Does that mean that it's just like, oh, you know, anybody can have everything you want? Not quite. I mean, we're essentially, what I'm, you know, designing is really a framework. And, you know, we did multiple tests of like, how could you almost make them the worst version possible?
Yes, yeah, I can imagine.
You know, so we decided there could be certain kind of combinations that you couldn't have. And but ultimately, they're actually, when you sort of times it all up, there are still millions of kind of combinations. And of course, you know, if people really tried, they could probably make, you know, make some that are not quite so that I might not approve of.
Yes.
But,
so is it a mathematical construction that you can have all the options, or is it a somewhat curated selection that you said like this is simply too ugly, you can't have it?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we kind of hope that our customers might have some good taste. So, and at the same time, it's also an experiment, and it's also it's a way of kind of collecting data in that way. Like, what do kind of people naturally want to sort of go for? It's but I mean, for me, it's a step towards a future that I see as kind of mass bespoke. And, you know, so many other industries are already able to offer the service. You know, you can get a car and you can choose your dashboard, your leather seats, whatever. And that, you know, that's a mass manufacturing business. But fashion is very rigid, and it's very much kind of kept, you know, the manufacturing of fashion hasn't kept up with the evolution of customers' sort of wants, essentially. So, you know, yes, you can buy a dress in different sizes, but is that dress really tailored to you? You can buy a shoe, and you can buy a shoe in many sizes, but, you know, what fits one person might not always fit another person. Everybody has a different arch height or different width, and I don't think that we're that far off from becoming, you know, where essentially you have all your sort of body data, and you'll be able to say, go onto something like Bare Bespoke, choose your colours, but go one step further and actually have it also fitted to you.
Absolutely, we're not too far away. It's already existing in the garment industry.
But I mean, I think there's so many interesting, you know, things happening with sort of tech, and of course what you're doing sounds.
Oh, fantastic! Sounds Thank you so much for your insight there. And Ananth, so what is the role of the Myntra designer in the future? Is that to be feeding AI, to teach AI what you know and how you think, or how do you see that?
No problem. So I know this may be a dangerous territory here
I know.
to talk about
Lots of minds there.
designers. But I actually think designers will become much more productive and actually focus on really value-added stuff. If you actually look at what a designer does today, a lot of what they do is actually around identifying trends, finding out what's going on. I think all of the AI-based work that I talked about will not replace true human creativity. What it will do, in my view, is actually enable designers to be a lot more productive and focus on the true areas of creativity. So I actually think it's an enabler. I do think fast fashion and being able to follow it will get completely transformed. Because I do think that can be done a lot more scientifically and a lot more done with data. And I think that industry will change. You talked about Tesla earlier. So I think if you just take this panel and you take AI-based design, you take mass customization, you take robotics, you could actually think about the fashion industry getting transformed quite quickly.
Oh, brilliant. And Danica, what are you thinking about creativity? Is there a difference between human creativity, AI creativity? How do you see all this playing together? No, that's a big question.
Yeah, so I think it's important to kind of like discuss where creativity comes from and what we get inspired by. I think that the access to data makes it possible for the machine to get inspired or to get access to more data, more books, more pictures, more places, more situations than any human on earth will ever be kind of like, possible during their life to get into. So if we see data as enabler to help a human, to empower human in their ability to see relations between things, places, people, situations, to adapt their design to my day. Sometimes I have days like this, fantastic days. Most other days will be leaving kids in the kindergarten or in school, getting dirty when picking them. So I think that how can fashion industry enable me as a working mom, as somebody that talks about at conferences and things like that, help me to wear clothes that is functional. So for me, creativity is finding a solution that somebody is willing to pay for, that makes me happy, that is functional, that somehow makes my life richer.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. And Alfredo, when we're talking about the creative process, I mean, the sort of like the holy grail of the fashion industry is very much the whole romantic notion of the creative genius and that. How do you see creativity and collaboration? Like, how important is the collective effort around this? Like, how can this develop? Because there's a lot of protection around, let's say, creativity and what this is mine and IP and all this. It often ends there. How do you see that?
That is an excellent question, actually. I don't know. I have a very particular experience with fashion and with Away Mars. Away Mars was born through collaboration. It's our ethos as a brand. And we have this discussion quite often at the office. So we have a designing team in-house that makes the ideas happen into a fashion product. And they all came from, Yohji Yamamoto, H&M, COS. So they came from the very product-heavy houses. And it's very interesting to have this discussion with them on our creative process. So Away Mars, it starts with the public insights and public inspirations, and that's how we develop the collections. And they always say to us, what you're saying, how much time they spend before trying to find a concept for the collection, for inspirations, and you say this is a trend or this is not a trend, is that too risky or not too risky? And Away Mars, we get all this data from the public and from a group of international designers that have access to the most variable information and data, and to create a collection that is interesting, innovative, and has a market validation as well. Yeah. So I believe that collaboration, and we can all agree here that Away Mars is not nothing like different from any other fashion house. So we basically, instead of having a design team close, we just open up our design team to the world.
Team.
Yeah, but we are not like the revolution. Like, it's not a revolution of the designing process.
But it still feels like it in the fashion industry
because it's so too close.
We are very much in a box.
I believe this is the future.
Okay. So it's like when we're talking about AI, we're talking mostly about the high street segment. So it's very interesting, this whole notion of creativity. Like, what is it? Like, how easy are we to, predict as, in algorithms, like with trends and all this? Like, is it really that straightforward? It looks like it, that, with the right algorithms, we can decode and we can design everything. But like, let's just say if we were to design a fashion brand, like a luxury brand, and used AI, like, for instance, like what would you recommend doing?
So I think a little bit of what you were talking about earlier. I think for human beings, right, it's very hard to sort of figure out more than 2 or 3 trends at any point of time, right? It's just what you process. You use the same thing and you go through. So what we do is we crawl through Instagram, right? You can actually crawl through technically infinite amount of data to actually figure out what are the trends that are actually happening at any point of time. And you can do that very, very granularly, right? You can say in this country, this color is trending. Now, that's very hard to do. So in my mind, even for luxury, I actually think predicting the trends I think AI can still play a very, very important
And
role.
then leave the creativity to
And I think it just improves
teams.
the odds of market success.
Yeah.
Because you're actually predicting the trend, right? Otherwise, you're sort of, to
Yeah.
your point, you're sort of guessing a lot of that. And now you're using data to make that more accurate.
Which is essentially already a part of the design process, the whole research. So Nicholas, if somebody like came and said, okay, we can distill your brand DNA, your creative signature with AI, you can go on holiday for the rest of life. Like, what would you do? Would you say like, yeah, I'll do that, like I'm fine with that? Or would you then go even more extreme in your creativity? Would you be like, okay, I'll hack that AI, I'll be even more unpredictable and, whatever, eccentric? I don't know.
I would kind of hope actually a little bit of both.
Yeah.
A bit of hacking and a bit of holiday.
Yeah.
It's no, I mean, I find that the concept of that very interesting, and of course having the access to that information. But I think the question always has to be sort of asked is like, if everybody has access to that same information across all of the brands, are they going to all be producing the same thing?
Yes.
And at that point, what is the point of difference? Is it then who's going to make it cheaper,
Who has the
or who's
best
got a better
algorithm?
marketing?
Yeah.
And yes, so of course, I mean, this role exists already in fashion, as merchandisers, as people, and they're very much sort of feeding that data and feeding that to designers essentially. And there's always a sort of a love-hate relationship between designers and merchandisers.
Absolutely.
But unless it can get to the point of it may be able to predict a trend. It might be able to say a certain color is coming up, or we've got maybe the Olympics are going to be in a certain country, and the colors of that country are this. So we feel that that's going to become a color that's going to be relevant within that particular year. So I think there's certain algorithms that you can work to do that, but can it get to the point where it's going to be following me on holiday, and I might see a sort of item in a market stall in some souk somewhere, and then combine that with an element that I've seen in a movie, and just at that point at 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up and it's like, this is a brilliant idea. Is it going to be able to do that? I don't think so. If I was
quite
able
complex.
to hand that idea over to almost enter that data into it and then go on holiday, I'd be
And leave the fun stuff to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that sounds like a plan. And then what I find really interesting as well is in this whole segment, it seems like there's lots of, like, you all represent different areas and different ways of working with, AI, the creative process, design process, manufacturing, all this. But it really feels as if it's all coming together and it's all going to be one. So, for instance, what you have with Amazon acquiring Body Labs really recently, then, that sort of leaves me, I think actually to, probably in particular Ananth and Danica and Alfredo, I mean, also you, I don't want to leave you out, but very much thinking about, like, what is the next step? Like, what is mass customization? How much do we want co-creation? How much do we want creative direction and just sort of like creative leadership and signature? So sort of like throwing that out to you. Oh goodness, I've got something falling out of my glasses.
So I don't know. I mean, we all talk very much about predicting trends, but for me, I would like to have an AI that actually builds trends. When you look into fashion industry, when you look into car industry, I mean, we have been in it for a really, really long time. Cars still look the same way. I still make pants and upper part. I still wear socks. I still wear shoes. And, is there something else? And that makes me wonder because, we do small variations on things and making small variations on things and fitting them to the body and things like that. It's not all that difficult. And it has been like that for a really, really long time.
Yeah.
So what I would like to see the technology being used for, it's partially interdisciplinarity, making things out of things that disappear, that dissolve, that I don't need to feel bad for actually, I don't want to throw this out, like it's like 30 years old, but blah, blah, blah. No, but really making us feel good about what we wear and maybe wear things for a day or two, if it's paper in some biological matter or something like that, or virtual reality in some way, not yet exactly, I don't know yet how, but it's combination with glasses, of course. But anyway, so thinking of how clothes is integrated with our bodies in a different way, and also for health purposes, if not more than that, making us more active and you know,
for better, healthier lives.
just thinking like we are talking very much about technology, AI, and so on, and we are changing the process, but in the end product, nothing has been changed.
Not so
for a
much,
really
not
long
theoretical.
time. Yeah.
So, Ananth, are you moving into that territory with master customization? Just like, I'm afraid we've moved into the very red area of having to finish, and we could go on for ages, I know, so just like really finish off very quickly.
I was just going to say, I think both mass customization and wearables, in my mind, will go through a complete transformation over the next 5 years. So I think the front end is already getting transformed, but I think the back end, to your point, is still the same. I think in the next 5 years, you'll start to see dramatic changes around.
Yeah. And Alfredo, have you got anything to add to the bigger picture of the future of A Way to Mars? What's your dream?
Yeah, so I think it's this balance between AI and creativity, and that's what we were talking before. Like, if I can use AI to maximize my productivity in the office, like the designers that work with us, they spend so much time doing, I don't know, spec sheets and talking to the factories,
stuff.
blah blah blah, doing
Nobody will miss that.
And yeah, so if we could use AI to like just learn how a t-shirt fits, and just apply that to everything, and
that's a big step
Yeah.
forward. I'm sorry, we have to finish. I'd love to continue, but thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.